Alright guys, Tush coming back at you. It's another day. It's actually Saturday, the weekend, and we're back just doing a little bit more work on the Alfa Romeo Spider. And I brought out one of the new header pieces. This is the 1 in 4 pipe, and then there's a middle pipe. So the 1 in 4 pipe is the pipe that you fit first according to the installation instructions from Alfaholics. So I thought I'd come out and try to do a fitment check on that first pipe, and of course I ran into an immediate issue, and I think that's involving the air pump bracketry that's on this car. So this is the engine mount down here. I think you can see that. Now this bracket was fit down here, and I believe this was part of the air pump, which would have been over on this side of the car initially. There would have been a big bracket up here. If you go back to some of my previous videos, I'd removed this bracket that fits on these snouts here out in front of the engine. Anyway, that air pump's long gone. It actually wasn't on this car when I received it, and it wasn't functional, or wouldn't have been functional anyway, I'm sure. So I've just removed this bracket because I was having some interference issues with that header pipe fouling on the top here. So I removed this bracket, and now that I've removed that bracket, I believe I can remove this other metal piece. It looks like there's a couple of captive nuts here on the inside. So we're going to move this piece, and then we should have lots of clearance there. So just cleaning this area up a little bit and making it look a bit better. And obviously we need the clearance anyway, and this stuff is redundant now since that air pump is gone. So we'll just get it out of there. All right, that looks a little cleaner down in that area with that little bracket removed. Here it is here on the floor. So just those two pieces there. So I'll put that in the baggie and keep it for the next owner. Anyway, we'll get that header fitted up now, and we'll see if we got enough clearance. We should be good now to go, but let's stick it on there at least just for a fit check, and then I'll be happy once it fits. Alright, we've fitted that 1 in 4 pipe, and it's going to look awesome when that's in there. It's just dry fitted without any gaskets at the moment, just one nut holding it on. I did see another little issue here. It's going to crop up with the oil dipstick tube. So if I put it back in its normal location here, it's going to actually touch the header. So we're going to have to tab this out a little bit to keep it a little bit of distance away. So going to have to add a little piece of metal in there to extend this tab out. So you can see when I push it in where it's supposed to be, it's going to actually be touching the header. So that's no bueno. Anyway, we'll space that out. So just another little tip there to expect that that's going to happen with your car, because I believe that dipstick tube is in the same place on all cars, not just my car. I can understand things like the bracketry because of the 80 and 81 having a different setup with the air pump, but something like that shouldn't change. Anyway, I brought the 3 tube out, so we're going to fit that up, just dry fit it, just to see what it looks like. Curiosity killed the cat, so to speak. I think it's going to look awesome on there, so let me fit that, dry fit that pipe up. Alright, that looks awesome. Happy with the fit so far. Looks like it snakes down below okay. That will connect up to a little 2-into-1 connection, a little Y pipe action, and we won't dry fit that at the moment, but I'm going to go under the car and just take a quick look at how those pipes exit and make sure there's good clearance down there. That looks fabulous up here, don't you think? Alright, quick look under the car where these pipes come out, and I just wanted to check for clearance between the pipe and the bottom of the floor. That looks great. So that's looking really good. So happy with that. So guess we'll have to wait now for the gaskets to show up to get these installed 100%. So we'll look for other jobs to do. I did want to mention one more thing before I go. So this is the sensor that fit inside the old catalytic converter. There's just a tube nut on the end of it that kept it installed. So this was just a sensor, I think, that used to tell you if the catalyst inside the catalytic converter was overheating. So I haven't detached this from anything. I think what we're probably just going to do is we're going to find a good place to locate this and zip tie it up. What we'll probably do is shrink tube the sensor part of it and just make sure it doesn't get any moisture in there. If anybody actually wants to reconnect the catalytic converter, they can, and put the probe back in. So I just wanted to show you that we did have to unscrew this before we got the catalytic converter and the rest of the pipes off. Alright, one of the other jobs I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the old Blaupunkt cassette deck out, as Doc wants to send it away to get some work done on it. So just going to go ahead, and I've already got the knobs off over here, and there's a couple of fasteners here, just a couple of nuts holding those spindles on, so hopefully those will come off. I can take the faceplate off, and then this should just push out the back. There might be another couple nuts under the faceplate, but let's see what we can do without doing any damage. That's the critical part. Got to be very careful. We don't want to scratch anything. We already got a little bit of a scratch down there. I guess that was there originally, but anyway, we won't make it any worse than it is. Alright, managed to get the faceplate off without any drama. So we've got it just sitting over here. There weren't a couple of fasteners, I'm going to put these over here before we lose them. So basically this just gets pushed back now. Of course it's wired in the back, so I'm hoping I should be able to reach around to the back of the console and just maneuver that out of the way, but we'll see. There's an awful lot of wires back there for the rest of the components, so hopefully we can do this without having to remove the center console, because that's a bit of a pain in the butt. Alright guys, it's now Sunday and we are returning back to the radio project, and I think I mentioned that I didn't have enough space at the rear to be able to push the radio back and drop it down. So that's going to entail me trying to first remove the center part of this console. So if you've not seen some previous videos on this car where I've had this console out before, the center of this console comes out and the sides can stay in place. So hopefully we're going to be able to remove the radio just by removing the center. Otherwise we're going to have to remove the outside piece, which is a little bit more difficult, a little bit more finicky. There's a couple screws down here, or at least one screw as I recall, that needs to basically be removed for the center console to move up and out. And this will have to probably remove the vent and heater controls over here as well. Just a couple of screws here which frees this up to be able to move this out as well. Probably remove the shift lever, the knob basically, to be able to get that boot up and off the stock. But other than that, I think that's about it. So we'll go ahead and start the process of getting the center part removed and see if that helps as far as getting the radio out. Hopefully it does. Alright, we've got the center part of the console up and out of the way. Unfortunately, there's a bar that connects the side panels together that the radio basically sits on, and with the sides installed and that crossbar there, it basically fits right underneath the bottom of the radio, so that prevents the radio from dropping down. So that's my problem, is to try to get enough space to get this to drop down into this cavity here because of that bar that runs across. So looks like we may have to go ahead and either try to pull this back a little bit by undoing this bolt, and there are I think 4 or 5 fasteners along the sides of the tunnel, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side, 2 or 3, and this bolt right here to be able to pull this console back some. So that's what we're going to do now in order to get that radio free. Alright, that was quite the ordeal to get the radio out. So pretty much the whole dash torn apart to get that out, to get enough clearance to drop it out. So just a few connections here at the back for the speakers and for the power and for the ground, and then that radio will be out. We'll ship it off to Doc so he can send it away for repair and decide whether he wants to reinstall it or not. He did send me a blanking plate for the dash, so next thing I'll see if we can actually get the blanking plate to actually fit and see if it works. So we'll go grab that inside, see if that works in that space, temporarily at least. But let me unhook this radio first and get it out of the car and boxed up and ready to be shipped back to Doc. Alright, here is the blanking plate that Doc has sent along to put in place in case he decides not to put the radio back in. The only problem is it needs to be modified, and I've already got the approval to modify it from Doc. See these 4 tabs here on the back. I'm not sure whether this is for a earlier or later car, but obviously there's no location here for those tabs to fit into to blank this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these tabs off. It should fit in that location, I think, once the tabs are trimmed off. Of course, now there won't be a way to actually keep that affixed there. So what I'm thinking of doing is actually just doing a little bit of a Velcro backing here, just a sticker here and a sticker here, and that should keep that in place. So that's the plan anyway. So we're going to get my Dremel out with a little plastic blade, and we'll trim this as need be, and hopefully these little white pins that are holding in the Pininfarina badge will actually fit in this little opening here. It's going to be close, so we'll see if we need to modify that at all. Hopefully not. Maybe we'll take a quick measurement there to see if those pins will fit in that square opening first before we do any trimming. Alright, we've got our little Dremel here, and if you're not aware, Dremel actually makes a plastic cutting disc. So I've got a bunch of those standing by. This is their little twist lock setup, which works quite well, or easy lock I guess they call it. So anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll trim those tabs off, and we'll go back and see how that fits. Okay, so we've trimmed those tabs off the back and managed to fit it in the area, but as you can see there's a problem. So it's too wide because the top of this panel is actually going to cover the warning lamps. You see a couple of warning lamps there behind. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is it's got a little bit of a ledge on the back here that I'm not going to be able to shave down. So this actually will probably not go completely flush to the dash anyway. It may sit out a little bit. Now that may not be too bad of a thing. It'd be kind of like a little shadow box type thing. So the other thing is, again, these white tabs, I'm not sure if they'll go in here yet because I can't push it flush because it interferes with these lights at the top. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'd like to trim from the top and the bottom, but I want to try to keep one finished edge. So I want to keep the top as a finished edge that you're going to actually see afterwards. And I'm going to try to trim the bottom with my Dremel and try to do a straight line. We'll probably mask that off with some masking tape. We'll try to take some off the bottom and then maybe be able to sort of sand that to make the bottom edge look a little bit better than what it's going to look after it's cut with a Dremel. So yeah, this may not work, but again, we've already chopped the tabs off, so we'll figure out how much we need to trim off the bottom to make this work. There's not a lot of space here at the just below the lights, so we've got to get the panel to fit just below those lights. And like I said, it's probably going to float a little bit anyway, but let's see what we can do. Alright guys, a quick look of the blanking plate installed. Basically trimmed along the bottom and a little bit along the sides as well to get it to drop in there. It's just kind of a friction fit at the moment. Again, it's floating a little bit from the back of the dash plate because of that longish sort of rectangular plate for this badge, so it's never going to fit completely flush, but I think it looks a whole lot better than the big empty space there that was being vacated by the radio. So I think we'll just leave that as is for now. I'm a little bit leery about trimming it anymore because it's very close to the top edge here. If I go down too far, then I'm going to reveal the opening for the radio, which is not what we want to do. So I think we'll leave it there and say that's good enough for now. And the doc will have to decide, like I said, whether he wants to put the radio or not back in. But we can affix that with a couple of little Velcro tabs. Although, like I said, it's pretty friction-y fit right now. But we'll maybe do a little Velcro tab on either side. This a peel and stick just to keep it in place 100%. Alright, just about to pick up where we left off with the exhaust fitting. I was waiting on my fitting kit to come from Alfaholics, and that is now arrived. So we've got the fitting kit here that we'll break out and utilize. Primarily what I was waiting for were the gaskets for the manifold and the new brass nuts. So those are included there along with all the hangers and bolts and nuts. So we've got that. We've also brought out a few more pieces to the puzzle that will show you in a little bit where they go, and as far as the order of installation is concerned. The Y pipe is the next pipe to go on, and then the mid pipe is the next pipe to go on after that, which will then lead to the two rear exhaust or rear muffler sections. So this is a hanger for the exhaust that actually works off the bracket that hangs onto it's a rubber bush bracket that hangs to the transmission. So that will show you the installation of that as well. So a bit more parts and pieces here to get assembled, but the first thing we need to do is to take the dry fit manifolds off, or the exhaust headers off, and apply those gaskets. And according to the instructions from Alfaholics, we'll install branch, I probably mentioned this already, but we'll just reiterate. I'll install branch 1 and 4 first, loosely with the gaskets, and then branch 2 and 3 will go secondarily. And again, that will be fit loosely before we move on to the next step, which will be fitting that Y pipe. So that's what we're going to do now. Let me get these off and we'll get the gaskets fitted. Alright, here's that stainless steel fitting kit in a little bit more detail. Of course, as mentioned there, the gaskets are a little bit different than a Triumph gasket, that's for sure. So individual copper gaskets, we got the copper nuts. This was a stud that was stripped when it came out, so we've retapped that, and not retapped it, re-dyed that, and we're good to go there. So we're just going to insert that back in. The rubber blocks for mounting the rear mufflers there, and these are the rubber bushings for the transmission mount for this pipe here that attaches to here. So we're good to go there. So we're just about to put this stud back in, and then we're going to add the gaskets in, and maybe a little trick I want to show you how to do that, but we'll see how it goes first, and then we'll bring you back. Alright, just a quick note on installing the copper gaskets. So we've got the copper gaskets installed on 1 and 4. Now, there is a bit of a trick if you need to utilize it. If you're doing like a stock manifold where you need to have all 4 gaskets on at one point in time, there is a bit of a trick where you can use an elastic band over the 2 studs to keep each of the individual copper gaskets in place. And once you have the manifold on the studs, you can then just snip the elastic band, and that will allow the copper gasket to keep falling off the studs like this one over here is wanting to do. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not. You can sort of see how that one's wanting to fall off. One more thing on the gaskets, there is a proper orientation. Now, they will fit on the studs 2 ways, but there is only one way that it'll actually work where it does not cover the actual port. And I'm trying to show you that here with this mirror. You want to make sure that your gasket, you can probably see in the mirror there, hopefully you can see maybe, is making sure that it is not covering any part of the port. If it is, then you have your gasket on in the wrong orientation. You can probably see it there in the mirror there. So I've got a nice wide open port, so I know that's installed correctly. So we can now move on to fitting that one part of the manifold that we've got already situated down here. We'll just pull it up there and put it on the studs. If we need to utilize the elastic band trick, we will, but I'm hoping we don't need to in this scenario. Alright, we've got all of the manifold nuts installed and tightened up loosely as per the instruction manual. So we're going to go down below the car and we're going to start attaching that Y pipe and getting that in the correct position before we move backwards towards the rear of the car. Alright guys, we're under the Y pipe connection. So there's the down pipe run from the headers, and there's where it meets up with the Y pipe, and then we follow that back and it's going to pick up that mid pipe section. Here we've got another band clamp to go here, so we're going to get up to the top of the car, grab that mid pipe section, and we'll attach it to the Y pipe. Again, I've just got these clamps done very, very loosely, just so I know that they are in the correct position. They are far enough up into the header pipes that they're not going to cause an exhaust leak. So we may need to do some adjustment, but they're fitting fine just right now. Again, they can go forward and they can come back slightly if need be. But again, that's why those clamps are just snug. They're not tightened up yet. Alright, don't forget to install the support clamp bracket that we see here. Now, interestingly enough, on the Alfaholics installation guide, they show this bracket installed two different ways in two different pictures. So we're going to go with this side as far as the installation is concerned. They show it also installed on the other side, flipped around with the flat side on the inside. Anyway, don't forget to update your rubber bushings here on your transmission mount if you need to. These are new. These were done probably about 8 months ago, so those are pretty new anyway. So anyway, that bracket's installed. We're going to move back now to this mid pipe and get that fitting loosely here at this junction, and then we'll move on to that big section over there, which is the front muffler, let's call it. That'll be next. That'll join to the end of the mid pipe. Alright, just a quick shot of the run of that mid pipe. So it runs over and towards the center of the car, towards the drive shaft. So what we'll do now is we'll get that box section over there and we'll put that on its hanger and get it connected up with another band clamp here on this pipe, and then it's a bolt-up connection on the other end to the tailpipe muffler section. So anyway, there's the hanger. I don't know if you can see, there's the hanger location there. So we're just going to pull this pipe over, get our hangers out, our hanger kit, new bolts, and we'll get that hanging and attached to the mid pipe. Alright, now we have the stereo out and we have the connections disconnected. I've just zip tied those connections together so we know what to reconnect when the radio comes back. So there's the power and the speakers there. The only other thing to connect is the antenna, which is back in there as well. So I'll zip tie all that together. We'll we'll electrical tape the ends here. There is one power wire for the stereo. We'll make sure that that does not touch anything. So we'll tape that up and we'll go ahead and we'll start fitting the dash back in place. Or not the dash, the console. Alright, Amazon arrived and I got a early Christmas present to myself. Got some new jack stands. So these are 6-ton jack stands, and the important thing for me was to get some with these locking pins. So they're obviously ratcheting, but then you've got the locking pin that goes through to lock them in place. And none of my current jack stands have a locking pin. So maybe I'm getting a little older and wiser at the same time. I tend to have my cars that I work on up very high off the ground if I'm working underneath them, just because of my personal girth. I need to have the car up higher than most, so I figured with the 6-ton stands that'd be a little bit more secure with me being under the car. So there's my early Christmas present to myself. So I'll put those into good use right now. Actually, we'll exchange out the current jack stands that I have at the rear of the Alfa at the moment, and we'll use the new stands. I'm going to be under there fiddling around with the exhaust, so no time like the present to put the new jack stands into use. So we've got the garage door open. It's cold out, but anyway, we'll exchange those jack stands and get ready to fit the rest of the rear section of the exhaust. Alright guys, it's another evening after work and we're picking up where we left off. So last night I utilized those new jack stands and put the rear of the car up a little higher on the and I've got those stands under the rear axle, so that's making me feel a little bit more secure. I did drag out the rear tailpipe muffler section. I've just got it sitting there underneath the car on a rubber pad ready to be pulled into place. I did have to go find a new gasket. Now fortunately I had one of these left over from when I did the installation of the old exhaust, and this does not come as part of the fitting kit, unfortunately. It should, as far as I'm concerned. This is actually from Centerline. There's the Centerline part number, and it's just called exhaust gasket. That primarily fits between the two sections at the rear here, so that gasket would go here and here on the old section, and it's going to go in the same sort of placement on the old and new as well once we get that fitted up in place. So I'm just about to get under the car. We're just getting set up, and we'll pull this into place. We'll hang it on the rear hanger first, and then we'll worry about attaching it at the 3 points here from the rear muffler section to that mid muffler section. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Alright, there's our new hanger in place here at the rear next to the gas tank. So that's all set up to receive the rear tailpipe section. So we'll go get our through bolts and our little plates there, our little reinforcement plates, and we'll get ready to hang that rear exhaust section from this hanger, which will then go up over the axle and meet the mid muffler section, which you can just see, maybe, I can position this over here, just over there. That's where the two pipes will meet, at that union there. Alright, I know it's going to be extremely hard for you to see back here, but we've got the exhaust run now, and it's looking like it's in a good position. So they mentioned in the installation instructions to make sure that this muffler is actually flat or parallel to the base of the car, so that's looking really good where it is. Of course, everything is loose right now, so they suggest that we actually start at the front and work our way to the back and keep everything in line. We've got our exhaust tip pointing out and centered, and we've just got it sitting under a jack stand right now with a foam pad on it in the correct position, because that can change when you start to tighten bolts up, particularly the union with the 3 bolts at the flange between this muffler section and the rear section. That can really sway where the pipe stick out ends at the rear valence. So anyway, this is looking pretty good. We are going to, like I said, start tightening things up and checking our clearances as we go, but all in all, looking good so far. Can't wait to hear it. Alright guys, we got it installed. There's the new tailpipe, looking pretty beefy, so that fits well there. I'm going to break out the Windex, and I'm going to wipe the exhaust down to get any of my fingerprints off of it, because I don't want the oils to be burnt into the new exhaust. So we'll do that before we do a test start, which will be shortly, and we'll check what it sounds like, and I'm sure it's gonna be awesome. Alright, we're just bringing the car up to temperature. As you can see, the headers are getting hot. I still have to do this tab for the oil dipstick, but that's looking good. It's sounding good. No leaks. I just crawled under the car. I'm not feeling any leaks at any of the joints. Let me set you up at the back of the car and I'll have a listen to it back there. Again, bear in mind, if you see some white smoke, it's because it's minus something outside. And it's cold in the garage now with the door open, so we'll do this quickly. Alright, one of the last thing I wanted to do was to make a new bracket for the dipstick tube to hold it away from the exhaust manifold, and you can see I think we've got enough clearance there now away from it. So I basically made a bracket. Here's the factory bracket, so I just basically made a longer bracket. So there's the original, would have sat something like that, and I've just made an extended out bracket. Same grommet, same configuration. So I've just got a piece of metal, ground that down and cut it, and I think that's looking good. We may paint that to keep it from rusting, although this one wasn't painted. So anyway, let's move on to finishing this project up. Let's put the airbox back on. And there's two more things I want to do underneath the car before we wrap it up and put an end to this video. So let's get the airbox on, and then we'll do one more visit under the car, and we'll be done for the night. Alright, our Amazon order showed up with our Redline 75W90NS. This is the transmission fluid that we use in this car. It's recommended for the Alfa Spider. So we're going to top off the transmission, and that will be one job done, and then we've got one more small job to done just in preparation for the next series of jobs that I'll talk about at the end of this video. Let's get the transmission topped up. Alright guys, the transmission is now full and topped up. So the next job I want to do before I go in for tonight is to break out the penetrating spray, because the next project we're doing is to change the front and rear shocks on this car. This car has the original Spica branded shocks still on the car, so 40-plus-year-old shocks that I think are due for replacement. So we've got some classic Coney red shocks to put on, the adjustable shocks. So our next series of videos will be on installing shocks on the front and rear of an Alfa Romeo Spider. Alright guys, that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, and thanks for subscribing. We'll see you on the next videos.